Hi folks, I'm Hector Garcia, CPA and Advanced QuickBooks Pro Advisor, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to prepare a 941 form with the Employee Retention Credit. Now, I'm going to make the assumption that you know and understand what the ERC is, and I'll put some links in the description below if you want to see other videos that explain that. So we're going to make the assumption that you understand what it is, and you know how the company qualifies, etc., etc. So we're just going to concentrate on what are the actual tasks that we have to do inside QuickBooks Desktop to enable that employee retention credit. Now, to get started, I'm going to go into Employees and Payroll Center, and I'm going to pull up the 941 as we have it right now. We're going to go back and look at Q4 of 2020, and we're going to look at the 941 that QuickBooks has prepared for us. So I'm going to click here where it says Create Form, select Q4 of 2020, then hit OK, and then QuickBooks will calculate my regular 941. I'm going to scroll down here. I'm just going to show you. Go to the next page here, show you what we have. So we have the total normal amount paid for payroll, the federal withholding, Social Security, Medicare, all that stuff. And then you're going to see here that the amount due is $6,868.86. I'm going to go to the next page and notice that there's nothing under the credits for the ERC. That's going to be under line 13C and 13D. So they're going to be sitting there. So there's nothing there now because we haven't configured it yet. I'm just going to showing you as a baseline. This is what this 941 is telling me I have to pay for the quarter. Maybe you already paid it. Maybe you're going to amend the return. We'll talk about amendments in a little bit. But for the time being, let's just assume that you haven't sent the 941 form, you haven't sent the money, and the liabilities there, and we're going to reconcile that. So I'm going to get out of that. And then we're going to make sure that we have employee retention credit for Q4 of 2020. Now, in order to do that, you first need to go into the list menu and click on payroll item. All right, and then here in the payroll item list, you're going to make sure that there are 2 items created in here specifically for this employee retention credit. So the first one we're going to do is create the company side, and then we're going to create the employee side. So we're going to do 2 of them. Also, in order to kind of see what's going on with this credit in your profit and loss, I'm going to go into the chart of accounts real quick and create an account. I'm going to create an account and go to New, and I'm going to call this one an Other Income, and call this one CARES Act Credits. So we're going to call it CARES Act Credits, and then we'll know exactly what's going on. And then hit Save and Close. Okay, perfect. So now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to go back into our payroll item list, and we're going to create the first payroll item. We're going to click on the drop down and click on New. And then the first one we're going to do is the employee side. So we're going to go into Custom. We're going to go into Addition. And we're going to call this one CARES Retention Credit Employee. So we'll type that in there. So CARES Retention Credit Employee. And by the way, I know these instructions seem a little strange. There's actually an article that walks you through it step by step. So I'm going to put a link to this article as well if you want to use that as an added thing with this video. So we're going to click on Next. Then we're going to select which category are we going to put these retention credit employee side. I'm just going to send it here to my regular payroll wages account. Then I'm going to click on Next. Then under tax tracking, very important, we have to pick this one called CARES Retention Credit Employee. Really important. We're going to pick that one. Then we're going to click on Next. Then we're not going to uncheck anything here. Leave it how it is. Click on Next. And then calculate this based on quantity or based on hours. So you kind of want to do it depending on how your employees generally get paid. For now, we're just going to put based on hours. I think that might be the easier one. Or we can do based on quantity. It just is how it's going to show up. Let's do based on hours for now. And then click on Next. And then this one, we're not going to press anything here. On the upper limit, we'll put here limit 10,000. Just so we're a reminder that that is the most amount of credit I can take for per employee per year. Then I'm going to click on finish, and perfect. So there's the first item. This is what we call the employee side. Now we're going to do the company side, or the credit side. So we're going to go to payroll item and then go to new. Then we're going to go do custom, click on next. This is going to be an other tax. Click on next. Then here where it says, is this tax paid by the employee or the company? This is paid by the company. Then we're going to click on next. And then what name we're going to give it, we'll just call this one CARES Retention Credits. We're not putting employee or EMP on this one. Let's call it the credit side or the company side. Then we're going to click on next. And then it says, what's the agency? So that's going to be the U.S. Treasury. It should be the same agency as your 941 taxes. And then here, the identification number for this one, you can leave that blank, but what you would put there is your tax ID or your EIN. Then what liability account we should use? Use your regular payroll liability, the same one as you would use for your 941. And the expense account for this one in particular, we're going to put here CARES Act credits. That's why we kind of took it out of a regular chart of accounts, made it its own account, so we can kind of see the effects of that after we apply that credit. Then we're going to click on next. And then under tax tracking, we're going to click on the drop down menu. We're going to leave that in none. Click on next. And then calculate based on, you could use neither. And then click on next. Okay. No default limit on this one. Actually, as a matter of fact, I lie. The default limit should, this one technically should be 5,000 because it's 50% of the 10,000 per employee. And then we're going to click on next and then finish and okay. So now we got both of our items officially set up, and we're going to use them in different circumstances. This one called employee, we're going to use that in their individual paychecks. And this one that doesn't have employee on it, we're going to use it on the actual payout to the government. So I'm going to click out of that and then go back into my payroll center or my employees payroll center. And then I'm going to modify a couple of paychecks for the fourth quarter of 2020. Now, of course, if you're not modifying past quarters and you're doing it on your live quarters, then all you have to do is making sure that what we're about to do, it gets done identical in each particular paycheck. But we're going to fix or modify 2020 in this particular case. So we go to the latest check, the oldest check at the end of 2020 or the fourth quarter of 2020. Double click on that and then go to paycheck detail. And then what we're going to do is we're going to transfer the information that's up here on the earnings side down here to the other payroll item side. So we're going to click on the drop down menu and select our CARES credit, our CARES retention credit for the employee. This is the employee side. And then here we're going to put 25 times 79. So we're going to match what's up here, and then we're going to delete what's up here. So basically all we're doing is taking it out of earnings and putting them in other payroll items. At the end of the day, your paycheck will calculate the same. Your net for that paycheck shouldn't change at all. As a matter of fact, you can just double check your original check and the new check amount, and that shouldn't change at all because you basically copied what was on the earnings side into the other payroll item side. So we're going to go ahead and click on OK, and then save and close, and that will modify that specific paycheck. Now we're going to go and just keep going through all of the checks until we hit $10,000 for every employee per quarter. So we're going to select this one, go to paycheck detail, same thing, come in here, use our CARES Act retention credit employee side, just copy whatever's up there, and then we're going to put it here on 0. Okay, again, we're going to double check. This was 78. So we're going to double check that the net amount, it's the same as the original check because we don't want to be modifying checks that we already created. Then we're going to click OK, and then save and close. Then I'll click on yes. Then we'll go to the next one. I'm going to just keep repeating. Paycheck detail. Come up here. Select the same item. 25 times 79, 0 hours in the top. Correct it down here. Again, net paycheck shouldn't change from the original net paycheck we wrote. Perfect. We do OK. Save and close. Okay, we'll go to the next one. And I'm just going to do the ones for quarter 4 of 2020. So we got, notice it's just repeating what's up here, just making sure that the total earnings, salaries, hourly, whatever you paid, it's just being copied down here under this item. I continue, save and close. Yes, perfect. And then we'll do the next one, which is the last one for this quarter. Then we're going to click on paycheck detail. Always make sure that it gets re-entered there and the net check amount is not affected by what you're doing. And then click OK and save and close. Okay, perfect. So we've done it for all the paychecks during the 4th quarter for this particular employee. Let's go to the next one. Oops. Double click too many times. Click on this one. On the next employee, double click on the last check for the quarter, paycheck detail. Then we do CARES Act. This one gets paid a different rate. So we just double check on that. And yes, it's the only way to do it. There's no fast, easy way to this. This is actually the way that QuickBooks was designed to do it. All right, so we're going to do each one, the next one. Notice I did reach 10,000 adding both together, but it's 10,000 per employee for 2020. So I don't think I'm going to reach 10,000 anyway. I'm going to pull up a report in a second just to double check, make sure that my wages are not over 10,000 and I'm not mistakenly over reporting this by any chance. Okay, and save and close, or okay. Save and close. Perfect. So they're all entered. What I now need to make sure is that the total amount of eligible wages for this CARES Act credit is not more than $10,000 per employee for the quarter. This is the rules for 2020. During 2021, the maximum is $14,000 per quarter per employee. But since we're doing a 2020 credit, then we're going to make sure that we don't get there. So I'm going to go to reports. I'm going to go to employees and payroll and do a payroll summary. That should work. And then we're going to go to dates. We're going to select last calendar quarter, or you can manually select the date range if it happens to be something else. And then under this line called CARES Act retention, nothing should go above 10,000. Notice that in this particular case, it did. And if I do go above 10,000, I'm going to be over requesting a credit. So this one should be capped at 10,000. So the best way to do that is once you go through all the payroll checks and you try to figure out at what point you would get to 10,000. So it looks like we get to 10,000 at this specific check. Obviously, I should have checked this while I was entering and modifying the paychecks, but it looks like I didn't notice that. So I'm going to go to this second check here, and I'm going to prevent the last 920 from overflowing that 10,000. So we're going to double click on that, go to paycheck detail. And again, the only number we want here under CARES retention credit, it's the 2,800 minus the 920, right? That was the overage. So what we want here is 1880. Even if this number doesn't jive with what you see here, it doesn't really matter, because what matters is the number that's here. And then here under hourly, we want at least 920 for hourly. So I'm going to put there 920. It doesn't let me put it there, so I have to do the calculation here. So what would be 920 divided by 35? It would be 26.29 hours. We'll put that in there, and this will recalculate. And I might be off by a little bit, and this is where you're going to have to kind of play around with this a little bit, because this needs to be exact. So if it doesn't let you overwrite it and just put 920 in there, which is not going to, and if I try tweaking the hours and go up a little bit more, I don't want to go over either. So we're kind of like, they're stuck trying to figure out how to get as closer as possible. So what I'll do is I will get here at 919.92, and then I'll add maybe a bonus or something for the 8 cent difference. That way I get exactly to 920. So this should be 920. That should calculate. So now the sum of these two will still be the 920. The net of the check wouldn't change. This is going to effectively now limit me to the $10,000, which is great. That's what we want. And then I'm going to hit OK here, and then click on Save and Close. And then, we went crazy with the last check, and that had gone over completely. So we'll go back and fix that here and take it away from here. That way we go back and put that under hourly. Then we click OK, and then Save and Close. And just so you can see and know what that looks like on the employee's paycheck, of course, you're fixing or changing these things after the fact. So it might not be such a big deal, for pay stub purposes. But if you want to kind of see what that pay stub looks like, let's go ahead and find out what that looks like so we can see. Do a preview. And then notice that it's just going to separate $10,000 out of the wages into this CARES Act retention employee. That might be confusing for some people, but that's how you do it. That's how QuickBooks does it. It actually messes with the employee's pay stub. So go back, hit close, and then Save and Close. Go back to that report, making sure that we are not capping that 10,000 limit. QuickBooks did warn me, and I kind of ignored it. So we had to go back and fix and change that. Now let's go back for a second and talk about that workaround I mentioned for you not have to go check or fix paycheck by paycheck to do this. What you can do is you can create basically a zero paycheck that has a positive $10,000 credit and then a negative $10,000 hourly rate on that period, then to kind of fake QuickBooks out of doing this without having to do paycheck by paycheck. So we're going to create a unscheduled paycheck. So we're going to go to Payroll. We're going to click on Start Unscheduled Payroll. And then we'll do a paycheck just for the end of the quarter that we're going to report. Let's say we're doing it for Q2 of 2020. So you just put here 6/30/2020. And we're going to select both of the employees that we're going to do it for. And we're going to go to Open Paycheck Detail. And then in here under hourly, we'll put here rate. We'll put here 10,000 and do -1 for hours. I know this is a really weird one. And then here under item name, we're going to select the same credit we've been using. And then on the rate, we'll put 10,000, but then the quantity is going to be a +1. Now make sure that here on this side, it's added up to 10,000. As long as that employee got paid more than 10,000, we'll go back in the report and double check that just in case, but I'll just do them for now so you can see how that works here. Notice the net check is 0. It's not generating any new tax or anything like that. All it's doing is changing the internal reporting inside QuickBooks to move the $10,000 to that worksheet 1 for that quarter 2. I'm going to go ahead and click on Save and Next. Do the same thing here. So this is $10,000 for okay there, -1 hour. And then we're going to do the CARES Act retention employee rate is 10,000. And then +1 hour. Make sure here on this side, you might need to override it. In this case, I had to override it because I already did quarter 2 and limited to 10,000 for the whole year because we told it to do that basically. So by doing this, I can now hit Save and Close, and that's effectively the workaround. Hit Continue, and I've successfully reported $10,000 worth of payroll for the quarter for each of the employees with those phantom checks. Now, in order to avoid that issue, let me go into avoid over-reporting that number. I'll go to Reports, Employee Payroll, Payroll Summary, and this is going to be for April 1st, 2020 through 6/30/2020. And then notice that, yeah, we do have an employee here that got paid $8,000 for the year, and essentially we're over-reporting him for sure. So that went over. That should have been capped at their salary for the whole year. And then we have this other employee that we, in this case, we over-reported. Okay, so because they only got paid a certain dollar amount in this case. Actually, let me filter it and just do Mario Gomez in this case. Let me see what his situation is. Let's just do Mario Gomez just to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Okay, and then I'm going to double click on this total dollar amount. And then notice that I had one paycheck for $8,000. So for them, I should not be reporting more than that. And then let's take a look at, let me remove that filter. Take a look at the other employee who was Brandon. And Brandon, okay, so we're on the same token basically. So I made a mistake on the way I said it. On the original paycheck, Brandon got paid $18,000. So the $10,000 is okay. So I'm just going to go back here for a second. I'm okay with this one because this number is positive. I'm not okay with this one because that number is negative. So I was kind of reading that on the fly there. So what we're going to do is we're going to change his paycheck because here that should never be a negative number. So here we're going to check it to match the actual check amount, which is, according to this, is $8,565.90, or the sum of all the check amounts that don't add up to 10,000 rather. And I'm going to go change that zero check that I created and then cap it at that amount. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm putting the same amount here, making sure that the amount is negative and positive. Again, the total wages for the entire quarter up to 10,000, but the actual payment made. So by doing this, I overrate that process and also make sure that it didn't go over the 10,000 or the actual checks paid. So now when I go into my payroll summary, notice that now my hourly is 0 because no longer at the hourly rate for reporting. I'm at the CARES retention credit for reporting, and this other one capped at 10,000 and the balance went over here. Similar amounts, but they're two different employees. So that's going to work. I'm actually going to run that 941 form. Let's go here to where is it? Employees, payroll taxes, and let's do payroll tax and forms, process payroll forms. Let's look at the 941 for quarter 2, 6/30/2020. Let's see what that looks like. Hit OK. We're just making sure that those $18,000 worth of credit are being reported in here. So let's go to worksheet 1. Looks good so far. Let's look at worksheet 1. Next. Okay, there it is. There's worksheet 1. So we're going to scroll down and notice there's my qualified wages, which is the cap of 10,000 for one employee, and the 8,000, which was the max for that quarter. So you notice that gets multiplied times 50, which is the tax credit, and this will then calculate what you need to do. So now you know both ways. You know how to modify each paycheck for this is because that's how you're going to do it moving forward. And then you know also how to do the one overriding workaround. So you only do one check per employee, and again, capping at their total amount or 10,000, whichever is the lesser amount. So that tells you exactly how to do the 941s and how to report those employee retention credits. All right, let's go back to the exercise for quarter 4, 2020 again. So let's go into employees, pay taxes and forms, process payroll forms. I'm going to write down some numbers here. We're going to go to our 941, click on create form. Then we're going to scroll down or go to the next page. And then we're going to look at the 2 credits. So we have 2 credits here, 1464.44, which is the non-refundable credit. And then we have the 8458.56, which is the refundable credit. So I'm just going to write them down in a paper here. And we're going to keep a note that the money that they're going to pay us back is $3,081. So I'm going to close that for a second. And I'm going to go up to the balance sheet, run reports, company financial balance sheet. And so far the balance sheet, let's do last fiscal quarter. It says that we actually owe 6868.86, which is the original liability amount. But we are not going to know that we actually don't know that money until we actually process the payment with the credit So let's go back into employees, and let's go into payroll center. And then under pay liabilities, we're going to select the payment that we want to make and go to be on pay. And by the way, we're not making an actual payment. We're going to request a refund, but we have to tell QuickBooks, make people think and assume that you pay that so you can get the credit back. Now I'm going to date this one 12/31/2020 just for reporting purposes. And I'm actually not going to pay the government anything, so I'm going to put 0 here. Then down here on the payroll liability items, I'm going to scroll down to the last blank item, and I'm going to select the CARES retention credit, and I'll put both numbers here. So 8485.56, this would be refundable credit. And then we're going to do a second line here. And it doesn't matter that it's refundable or non-refundable. That actually doesn't mean anything for the mechanics of what we're doing here. We're just doing it to identify. And both of these need to be a negative amount. So once both of these are negative amount, you see that the check would be a negative 3,081.14, which that can't happen. The check can be a 0. So in order to make that work, we're going to go into expenses and then select the payroll liabilities account. Okay, payroll liabilities. And we're going to increase it, cancel here, by the same amount as that negative amount. So 3081.14. And then now that should be a 0. I'm going to hit save and close. And now I'm going to go back into my balance sheet. And it should say that now they owe me 3,081.14. So when I receive that money from the government, that's all going to 0 out because I'm going to go into banking. I'm going to go to make deposit. Let's say I received that, I don't know, March 31st, 2021. From account would be payroll liabilities. We can call it here 941 ERC refund. And then we'll put here the 3,081.14 and put it in the correct bank account, whatever it happens to be. Receipt one from the United States Treasury. So that's what that refund will look like in the accounting. And then once that's done, that negative payroll liability will now be zeroed out by that. So we'll click save and close. And that's essentially how you would see, how you would actually mark that overpayment or refund for it to sit as a negative in your balance sheet until you get paid back. Okay, so that pretty much summarizes the process of adjusting the paychecks, cleaning the paychecks, getting them ready, getting the 941 to report correctly, and dealing with the overpayment. Let's talk briefly about amending a return. So let's say you already filed your return in the past, at some point in the past. Now we're going to go ahead and amend it. Now, before I do that, I'm just going to go to the reports, company financial profit and loss standard, because I just want to show one more thing. I'm going to go into dates and do last fiscal quarter. And then notice that we have our regular payroll expense accounts. We have a regular payroll taxes. But then we have an income account called CARES Act credits. This is where that actual credit, that the sum of the 8,400 and the 1,400 get added up here. And that's where the government essentially gave me as a gift, as a grant, as a tax credit. So that goes as an income account in my profit and loss. Now, you could move that into your gross payroll, so you're going to reduce your overall payroll expense. You can do that, but I like to see it separately like that just because it makes a lot more sense to me to at least see where those credits are going into. Anyway, let's move on to doing an amendment. So we're going to go into employees, taxes and forms, process payroll forms. Then we're going to select, double click here. Let me select the amendment and go to create form. And I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on the amendment, but I'm going to kind of walk you through the numbers that you should be looking at. So the first part of the amendment, we're going to let them know when we discover the error. Let's say this happened in 3/31/2021. Then we're going to choose the type of amendment that it is. This is going to be a over-reported amount adjusting process. That's what it is, adjustment process. We'll scroll down here and then go to next and see what else it's going to ask us. Okay, so we're going to select on part 1, we're going to select adjustment of employment tax return. That's the one that we're going to choose. Then on part 2, you have to certify that if there's a W-2 change, that you're responsible for making that change to the Social Security Administration and also to your employees. Then we're going to go down and certify that these changes only affects employers' share. So we're going to click on that, and then we're going to go down here, and at the same time, this only affects employers' share. So that's going to be this third one, C. So part 5 or section 5 of part 2, section 5 of part 2, that would be C, that it's employers' share only. Again, we're just certifying that this is not affecting the individual employees. Then we click on next, and then the numbers that we're going to put. So we're going to take the old 941, the one that we already filed, the new 941 that QuickBooks generates from us after we make that change, and we're going to go line by line and change all these numbers. Now, particularly for this quarter, the wages didn't change. So we can put the same wages in both sides. The wages didn't change. Federal tax withholding didn't change. So I don't remember what it was, but oh, here it is. I have it in my notes. 28.80. Same thing, 28.80. Social Security wages, same number. So far, no changes. We're just basically reporting old versus new. We didn't cover qualified leave wages. We didn't cover any of those things, so we're going to skip them. Medicare wages is 23, 620, 23, 620. And then we're going to do, where is my Medicare and my Social Security wages. Okay, perfect. I think we're good to go. So there's no changes on this front, on this first part. Then we're going to put our changes for our sick leave and an employee retention credit. So for non-refundable portion, that's going to be the 1464.44 versus 0 that was last time. And then we're going to go to scroll this down because there's no changes here on this side. Then we're going to do the refundable portion, which is the 8485.56, 8485.56. Okay, perfect. And then we have we got that in there. Actually, we put that in the wrong place. Whoops. Let's take this out and this out. It's supposed to be down here. Down here. I skipped that. Okay, perfect. So now, actually, the original one was a 0. So now it should now reflect a credit of 9950, which is what we showed to be what it is. We didn't deal with any health plans, so we can skip all that part out, and none of this other stuff. Then click on next. Then we're gonna put here that we are dealing with those corrections, and then we'll explain here. We'll put here we did not claim the RTC credit on the original return. That's it. You can put under CARES Act. And then I don't think we have to do anything else here at this point. Then you would just print it and sign it. Let's see what that looks like. Let me go to print and hit yes. And let's do the tax form. Print the PDF so we can see what that looks like. Okay, there's my my amendment. So we have our wages didn't change, our withholding didn't change, our Social Security wages didn't change, our taxable Medicare wages, that didn't change either. Okay, there's no changes in the tax amount. There's a change right there, okay, on the refundable amount and on the non-refundable amount, and then changes on the refundable amount. There's my claim, and that's it. You would fill out and sign that return, and then basically with this amendment, that's what we're doing. We're claiming the 9950. Make sure I'm not missing anything anywhere here. Okay, yeah, there's a little part here that we messed up. There's a second part here, which is kind of the worksheet 1 amendment, which is right here, qualified wages under employee retention credit. We didn't put that part. We should have put that. So let me go back into QuickBooks here. And I don't remember what that number is, so I'm going to go back to the 941 itself, not the amendment, but the original 941 or the 941 that we created with the adjustments, not the original one, the one that looks like an original, but it contains all the changes. Let me pull that up and pull up that worksheet one. Where is that worksheet one? Okay, right here. So these are my wages, 19,900. Let me write that down. 19,990. These are my qualified wages. That was the one part that we missed from that amendment. So let's go back and finish up that amendment. Let's do 941X, create form, click OK. Hope all the numbers are still there. Let's put our check boxes again, because when you get out and get back in, you miss on the check boxes. Go back. First one. Okay, so 3/31/2020 and adjusting process. Next. Okay. Checkbox is right. Then we have employer share only and employer share only. So we lost the checkboxes as we got out. We lost all the numbers. Let's do them again. Okay, now that we have everything that is supposed to be. That's why I mentioned earlier that I'm not a big fan of the QuickBooks for amending 941s. Okay, so that's all out. So taxable Medicare wages, 23,620, 23,620, perfect. Then we have the non-refundable portion of the retention credit, 1464.44. Originally was a 0. Then we go down to the refundable portion, 845.56. Original was a 0. Perfect, we got that. And then this is the part that we messed up in. We forgot to put this one here, qualified wages. So that's 19,990 compared to nothing. And that essentially is it. Nothing else applies. So we'll put that and we'll just type the same explanation that I mentioned earlier. Let's print that amendment. Click on yes. Print the PDF, see what that looks like. Okay, we got all the check boxes where they're supposed to be. We got the refund request for 9950. That's what the refund request is. And this is supposed to have that note in there. And perfect. So here's the instructions of where you would send that to. In addition to that, what I would do is send that amendment, but also I'm going to close out of there. I'm also going to print out the actual new 941. So I'm going to print out the new 941. And let's just make sure I'm not missing anything here. So let's just see. Nope, nothing here applies to what we were doing. That works. So this is the new updated 941. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and print this form or save it as a PDF. And I'm going to hit desktop here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to send that amendment, just the amendment, but also, and this is just kind of more of a personal best practice, also I take the actual new 941, okay, which is this one, and I'm just going to make sure that everything here is good. And there's my request for a refund is here, the 9950. And then what I'll do is I'll write on top of the 941 as amended. So I will submit the amendment, and then I'll submit this as amendment. That way they get the actual form calculation and they get the worksheet 1, because you need to send that worksheet 1 with the amendment as well. So that would be the complete amendment process. I know it's like, what the heck? But that's amending a 941. It's literally that complicated. All right, so as an accounting firm, we have already in January of 2021 already done tons of this, because the the employee retention credit is a huge, huge opportunity for employers out there. And I don't want to get too much into the weeds in terms of what exactly is it or how you qualify, but I'll quickly, briefly mention the way you qualify is by having a 50% reduction of your revenue or more for any given quarter during 2020. And the following quarter from that quarter in which that decrease in sales for 50% or more was manifested, that following quarter is the one that gets the retention credit. Now, you're allowed to use the 941 for quarter 4 to claim all of 2020 if you want to. And as I mentioned earlier, the cap for all 2020 is $10,000 for the whole year per employee, which is multiplied times 50. Therefore, the actual cash refund you can get per employee at most is $5,000. Now, in 2021, you can claim employee retention credit for quarter 1 and quarter 2 of 2021. Hopefully, if you're watching this video during that time, you'll be doing this in real time and not having to amend the way you're most likely going to do for 2020. Now, for 2021, the revenue reduction doesn't need to be 50%. It only needs to be 20%. So as long as the revenue reduction for 20%, for example, during quarter 4, if your revenue is 20% less than the quarter 4 from 2019, we're talking about comparing 20 with 19, then you can take the credit on Q1 of 2021. Now, if during 2021, your sales go down by 20% or more of quarter 1 of 2020, so again, quarter to quarter, you can take the credit also for quarter 2. Now, what's interesting about the 2021 version of this is that the cap per employee is $14,000 in wages per quarter. So that's going to be $7,000 per employee per quarter, up to $14,000 in cash refund you can get from the IRS as an employee retention credit, as long as during 2021 you only had a 20% reduction in sales. So 2021 is going to be a huge year for these credits. It's only for 2 quarters, but you can get up to $14,000 per employee compared to $5,000 capped for the entire 2020. So that's something to definitely look at. I think it's a huge opportunity for employers to get that credit. Totally legal, part of the big stimulus package, part of the CARES Act and the extension of the CARES Act with December 27th, 2020 law for the Appropriations Act of 2021. Anyway, as a firm, we'll be doing tons of this. If you're trying to do this in your own system, if it's overwhelming and confusing and you think you're going to get it wrong, just hire an accountant. You're going to get a bunch of tax money from the IRS. If you do it right, might as well hire a professional to do so. However, I'm not discouraging you to do it on your own. If you got QuickBooks Desktop, if you got Payroll, you follow the steps here one by one, and I'm going to click a link. I'm going to give you a link to the instructions that are written by QuickBooks explaining to you what to do one by one. Technically, you didn't have to watch a 45-minute video. You could have read that one-page document and follow the directions. However, it's difficult because this is new to me, new to everybody. This video is like 45 minutes long, but it took me 4 hours to make, right? That I'm finishing up between the edits and playing around with QuickBooks and me understanding kind of how it works. But hopefully the video is comprehensive enough that it's useful. And if you're using QuickBooks Desktop, you can take advantage of it. Anyway, I'll have my contact information in the description if you want to contact my firm for professional services. If not, I hope this worked for you, and I'll see you on the next one.